How's it going, backpackers? Dave here with Off Grid. I'm into backpacking, hiking, camping, and gear. And today I got tips for you guys on how to lower weight in your pack, base weight, overall weight, whatever. We got a lot of different tips to get through tonight, so let's get through them for you guys. Let's just jump right into it. The first three that I'm going to mention here are going to be tips on different materials. So basically switching up the type of materials for certain pieces of gear in order to lower weight. What do I mean by that? Well, first example that I have right here to show you would be for your pot. So we've got something like switching from this guy right here, which is a stainless steel pot from Stanley. I call it Stanley Steamer.
Stanley Steamer gets carpet cleaner.
Over to a titanium pot like the Toast Titanium, or a lighter weight aluminum pot. The next tip that I have for you guys, kind of going along with the stove, or stove kits or whatever, would be do you even need a stove kit at all? Can you get away with not having a stove when you're out there in the field? What do I mean by that? Basically cold soaking, not heating up or boiling water for food, and just kind of eating everything cold. Not my preference, but that's definitely a way to go. And another thing, still going along with your overall cook kit, would be going with a lighter stove. I got one right over here, which is the old clunker, tried and true budget-friendly option. This is the BRS stove right here, and weighs just over 3 ounces, I believe. But you can go with something that is slightly more expensive, such as the BRS stove, which only weighs about 1 ounce, so you're saving 1/3 of the weight right there. But again, this list isn't about fuel efficiency, it's really just about cutting weight wherever you can. The next tip that I have for you guys is going to be switching out the type of material again, and this time I'm going to say switching out from synthetic over to down. So synthetic, I know there's been a lot of advancements in that particular area nowadays, particularly with what Enlightened Equipment has been able to do with some of their Torrid line, and some of the synthetic fill in those types of materials. But historically, and the general rule of thumb is still that down is going to weigh a lot lighter than synthetic. A lot of the things that you're going to see on here too is going to be more expensive than your more traditional or budget-friendly options. So again, going with that gear nerd math that I like to throw at you here, it's going to be, as the overall price goes up, the weight in your pack goes down. And also with this video, it's going to be your total weight is going to come down, and your overall comfortability is also going to come down. So the last one I have for you for the materials section is going to be if you want to spend a bunch of money, and if you saw my Should You Buy a Z-Packs tent video, then you kind of know my stance on this one. But swap out any other material, EcoPack, nylon, things like that, and just go for either Dyneema or Ultra materials, because they're going to be some of the lightest that you can go with. You can literally save pounds off of your overall base weight if you're swapping out all the nylon for DCF or Ultra material. So like your tent, your backpack, any other stuff sacks, anything else that's made with a nylon that can be swapped out for something lighter. The next tip that I have for you guys is going to be to bring less clothes. That one's pretty obvious. A lot of people like to mention that one. I personally don't like to be super stinky and dirty when I'm out there. The next thing that I'm going to mention here, or the next tip I got for you guys, is going to be some clothes in a stuff sack instead of bringing a traditional pillow. So, pillows can range anywhere from, on the lighter end, of only a couple ounces up to my more plush model that I like to recommend, which is the Thermarest small pillow. That weighs a little bit under ½ a pound. But what you can do, and it's not going to be as comfortable, is grab a stuff sack, and maybe even one that has like a more plush top to it, or something that's a little bit better than just like something where your head's going to slide off and all around, and just shove your clothes in there. If you bring a couple extra pieces of clothing, or your down jacket if it's a warmer night, shove that in there and just use that as a pillow. The next tip that I have, even though I just mentioned stuff sacks, is going to be, I got it right over here, to get rid of all your stuff sacks. I actually have an entire stuff sack of stuff sacks that I have here that I have no intention of using ever again. I don't even know if I should pull any of these out here. And kind of going along that too is going to be compression sacks. This is, I got a ton of these things all over the place, but compression sacks, pump sacks even, you don't need those, right? It's not something that you have to have in order to backpack and camp out there. So stuff sacks is going to be another one that I think you should ditch. The next one I'm going to talk about here, and it's kind of gross because I haven't cleaned it off here. This is my car camping at camp shoe. It basically is like a base camp kind of shoe. So taking off your hiking shoe when you're out there, hiking a bunch of miles and your feet are kind of swelling up and stinky, and sliding into something like this is going to be ultra comfortable. These are actually really warm as well. If you want to just kind of like sit around at night, but those things can be decently heavy. Even something like this, and this is my fiance's flip-flop over here, or sandal, whatever you end up calling it, hot debate, but even something like this, even though it's extremely lightweight and super budget friendly and cheap, it's still gonna end up holding you back by a few ounces. So ditching those can save you some weight. Again, it's not a necessity because you already have your hiking shoes, so you don't need them. Next thing I'm going to mention here, and let's get my Yeti out of the way so I don't knock it over, is going to be my beloved camp chair. You don't need one of these guys. Just being a sit pad or sit on a log, or they sell these things now where you can kind of like buckle them in and make your sleeping pad into a camp chair, sort of around camp, which is all going to be a lot lighter than something like this. This is your 1 pound option, ultra comfortable, highly recommend it for anybody out there. But if you're looking to shed weight, that's a huge one that you can shed, because that's one of the more comfort items that you just shed a pound instantly right there, right? So that's an easy one. The next one I'm going to mention, and I was going to grab it before I started the video, but I really don't feel like it right now, so I apologize. But I have the other one to replace it with, is to get rid of the big wet wipes and go for something like these. This is what's called an adventure wipe. You might have heard of a Wissy wipe or something like that. It basically look like little white tablets here, but you just rehydrate these, and these dehydrated towels are going to weigh a lot less than your traditional wet wipes. Another one that I actually just heard of is pretty cool as well. You can actually take your wet wipes, leave them out, and they'll get dry, and then they'll be lighter, and then you can just take them into the backcountry and then rehydrate those as well. So you don't have to buy the dehydrated ones. You can buy your regular wet wipes and just kind of leave them out, and they might be a little bit more sanitary because some of the wet wipes have a little bit more of the germ killing factors or properties with it. Let's move on over to the next one that I have for you guys, and it is going to be to not bring a saw or a knife. So I have here the Silky Saw, really cool, tried and true, great to process your firewood. I have here a very slim little Gerber knife. I think this is the commuter knife. I really like these pieces, but they're just not necessary. It's added weight that you don't need to have. You don't need to have a fire when you're out there. It's really nice to have one, but you don't need to have one when you're out there, so you can ditch those to save on some weight. Next one that I have for you guys, I'm really just blasting through these, as many as I can, would be this thing. And if you don't know what this is a pump / lantern. And it's really cool. It can pump up your pad. It can also provide an additional light source at night, but you don't need it. Just like I mentioned, you don't need a pump sack. You don't need something like that either. You could just blow it up. You can blow up your sleeping pad with your mouth manually instead of automatically. So that's another thing that you don't need to have when you're out there. The next thing I'm going to mention is going to be by way of your electronics and by way of power banks. I had to reach for this one, but it's going to pose a question to you guys, which is how much juice do you really need, right? So I've got the Ultra Extreme on this end, which is a 20,000 milliamp brick that has a nice digital display of your overall percentage of juice left. If you don't need that much juice for a weekend trip, if you're going out for something that is either an overnighter or maybe a couple of days. Something like this will do you just fine. This is a 5,000 milliamp, so it is a quarter of the overall capacity of the huge brick, but it's also going to weigh a lot less as well. The next tip that I have for you guys is going to be by way of your water carry. Definitely don't bring something like this, ultra insulated, and don't bring something like this either. This is one of the first water bottles that I got. This is by a company called Pogo, but the popular one is Nalgene, right, which is even heavier than this. Just go with the smart water bottle. That one's pretty obvious too, and that's kind of been played out. So we'll move right on to the next tip, which is to cut out any of the other extras. You've heard of the term don't pack your fears. Well, cut out any of the extras that you can think of. If you're thinking that you have to bring an extra knife or extra towels for different things or extra light sources like I had mentioned with the lantern, anything that you can think of that you have multiples of in your pack that you don't need, cut those out and you're going to end up saving yourself a lot of weight. So to summarize everything up here, I kind of rifled through these real quick in the sake of time here, but the biggest thing that I can say to summarize all this is to pack for necessity and not for comfort when you're thinking about shedding weight in your pack, base weight, total weight, whatever. Think about what do I actually need versus what is going to make my experience more enjoyable either on the trail or at camp. You have to make sure that you're doing safety first as always, but a lot of the things that I had mentioned here today in this video, you don't really need when you're out in the field. They're just nicer things to have when you're out there. It kind of increases the overall enjoyment, like I said. That's going to do it for this one, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any other tips that I missed, please leave it in the comments down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and click that bell notification so that you can be aware every time I post a new video. And then if you really liked it, share it out to all your friends. I'd really appreciate it. But that's going to do it for me on this one, guys. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you all next week. Just going with water tonight. In a Yeti tumbler, not sponsored. What do I have in here? Oh, it's my old Vargo instinct.